What's happening, everybody? Tyrone Bowman live. Global news. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program on tonight. A couple announcements before I get started here. It's a lot of news to cover, and hopefully you'll be interested in some of the stories coming out of New York City, Washington, D.C., from other parts of the country, and around the world as well. For those of you that are interested in following me, you can follow me across social media if you'd like to. You can catch me on Instagram at Tyrone Bowman, at FaithVational1. That's on Instagram. On Facebook, it's Tyrone Bowman. Also, I think I'm on Threads under the same name. You can check me out on Threads. I'm on Substack. That's a relatively new channel for me. I haven't really done too much over there yet, but I will be pretty soon. Let me see if I'm leaving anything out. We're trying to get a lot of things done in record time. It's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of news to cover, and especially as we getting ready to go into the midterm elections, I want to keep people updated and informed. Coming out of New York City, according to the New York Times, it's talking about the mayor, talking about Sahan Mandani, New York's mayor. As you know, this article is written by Maya King for the New York Times. It's the month of Ramadan for Orthodox Muslims in America and around the world. And Mayor Miami, he is an Orthodox Muslim. So according to Maya King from the New York Times, when the crescent moon rises on Tuesday evening, more than 500,000 observant Muslims in New York City will mark the beginning of Ramadan. Considered the holiest month in Islam, joining them will be the city's first Muslim mayor, Zahan Mandani. Every year, the world's nearly 2 billion Muslims celebrate Ramadan through fasting, prayer, reflection, and service. Fasting during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, in which observers refrain from eating or drinking from sunrise to sunset. They break their fast, with a large evening meal or iftar with family and other members of their community. Mr. Mandani has had to incorporate observing Ramadan into the rhythms of public life since joining the New York State Assembly in 2021, sometimes in very public fashion, especially during his mayoral campaign last year. At the end of a day of campaigning last March, he posted a photo of himself breaking the fast by eating a burrito on the Q train, an image that drew more than 1 million views and spawned a debate on social media. But this Ramadan is likely to look very different for Mr. Mandani, or Mayor Mandani, coming against the backdrop of a jam-packed City Hall schedule and the exhausting everyday demands of leading the nation's largest city. In the early days of the month, he will host iftar, dinners with firefighters, delivery drivers, and other working Muslims in the city, part of a strategy to focus on the service projects and community outreach that define the principles of Ramadan, his senior aide, Zahra Rahim, said. Mr. Mandani will fast while giving speeches, traveling across the city, and greeting constituents without so much as a snack or a sip of water. He will break his fast at a handful of his favorite local restaurants throughout the weeks, and his office will support meal distribution efforts that some mosques with large migrant populations are leading, Ms. Rahim said. The mayor will also incorporate much of his campaign's Ramadan strategy into his daily governing style. He is expected to film a few Ramadan-related videos, and his team is planning specific outreach to the city's West African, South Asian, Middle Eastern, and Black American Muslim communities in an effort to showcase the diverse backgrounds of the city's Muslims. The schedule of fasting while working as mayor will be a major change of routine for Mayor Mandani, who has spoken about waking up just before sunrise during previous Ramadans to have a quick snack before starting his day as an organizer or assemblyman. Now his days are much longer, and early morning meals and post-sunset dinners will be worked into his governing schedule. The shorter day of the last few weeks of winter may make the time without food and drink a bit more bearable. Ms. Rahim noted Muslim members of Mr. Mandami's administration will also join him in observing Ramadan and play a role in how he publicly marks it during his first Ramadan as mayor. Mr. Mandami will have an outsized platform to provide a look at the Muslim cultural experience in New York City. Well, this is I think she concludes the article by saying this. I'm deliberately skipping one part. More than 20% of American Muslims live in New York City, according to an analysis from the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. Past mayors have marked Ramadan with events or proclamations that have served as overtures to the city's Muslim communities. Michael R. Bloomberg hosted iftar dinners at Gracie Mansion and defended the construction of a Muslim community center in Lower Manhattan in 2010. Bill de Blasio allowed the city's public schools to close in recognition of two of the highest Muslim holidays, the Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Eric Adams hosted Ramadan celebrations in each of the 5 boroughs for the several 100,000 Muslim New Yorkers who also observe Ramadan in their workplaces. Groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations will offer support and anti-discrimination advocacy. And I'm also going to bring you information about the Lent season and Ash Wednesday, celebrated throughout Catholicism. As soon as I can find that feed, I'll pull it up and I'll have it for you as well. But I want to get into some of the other stories here. Let me get back to this feed and talk about what is really happening in the nation and around the world. Okay, coming out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, in the Crime and Justice section, Chris Palmer is attributed to this article. A former Philly drug kingpin, once ordered to life behind bars, had his sentence reduced to 25 years. Wow. Alton Ace Capone Coles was described by prosecutors as one of Philadelphia's biggest drug kingpins. He became eligible for a new sentence based on changing federal laws. In 2009, after a federal judge effectively ordered Philadelphia drug kingpin Alton Ace Capone Coles to die in prison, imposing a life sentence plus 55 years for convictions on a host of drug and weapons charges. Coles monetarily dropped the swaggering persona he had displayed while building his vast cocaine empire. Now, how in the world are you going to serve a life sentence plus 55 years? Sometimes these judges don't think. Sometimes I think they're the ones that's high on drugs or cocaine. Quote, "I never thought it would come to this," Coles said at the time, his voice cracking as he spoke in court. "I don't think life is deserved for selling drugs." I wonder, does he have a point there? Because the pharmaceutical industry, they're the biggest drug peddlers in the world. And they make billions and billions and billions of dollars doing it. On Tuesday, another federal judge offered something close to an endorsement of that view as she ordered Coles' sentence to be reduced to 25 years in prison, meaning Coles, who is now 52, could be released within a few years. Coles' twist of fate is the result of a complicated appellate process, one that has its roots in how federal laws have changed in recent years for some drug crimes, particularly those involving crack cocaine. The penalties for crack offenses were once significantly harsher than those tied to other narcotics, leading to widespread racial disparities because most defendants in crack cases were black. Cole's lawyers say his case is also a demonstration of the remarkable turnaround Cole has made behind bars. While Cole once oversaw a drug operation that was estimated to have poured $25 million worth of cocaine and crack into Philadelphia, all as he served as the brash face of a local hip hop record label. In prison, his lawyers said he has become a barber, facilitated anti-violence programs for other inmates, and served as a counselor for prisoners with thoughts of self-harm. Knowing that he was facing the rest of his life in prison, Mr. Cole engaged in this extraordinary effort toward rehabilitation for the sole purpose of improving his life and of those around him. His lawyer, Paul Henstenicker, federal prosecutors told a starkly different view, saying that Cole was one of the major drug kingpins in Philadelphia during the last several decades, and that his eligibility to be resentenced was a result of a pure technicality. Even if Coles had committed his crimes today, prosecutors said after Congress changed criminal sentencing guidelines, his actions would still warrant a life sentence. That's a lie, because recently, as you can see, many criminals have been pardoned under the current administration, and some of them were drug kingpins. So they have two sets of guidelines, one for the wealthy and the powerful, and others for those who are not so wealthy and not so powerful. Coles led, and let me move my clock out of the way so I can keep track of time. My bad, y'all. Coles led an armed and violent cocaine and crack distribution gang which distributed quantities of deadly narcotics that the trial judge at sentencing aptly described as staggering. Prosecutors wrote in court documents. U.S. District Judge Kai Scott said she believed that Coles had transformed his life in prison, and that 25 years of incarceration, even if much shorter than a life sentence, was still a substantial amount of time to serve behind bars. Discussing Cole's growth since being convicted, Scott said, "I've never seen this type of post-sentence rehabilitation." Coles, meanwhile, apologized for his crimes, telling Scott he is determined to try to make amends for his past. "I'm not the man I once was," Coles said. When Coles was federally indicted in 2005, prosecutors said he had run one of the largest drug organizations in modern city history. That is a lie. Let me tell you why it's a lie. They couldn't even control the mob in Philadelphia. You remember? They had a hard time prosecuting the mob in Philadelphia. Coles and his conspirators, they said, helped push a ton of cocaine and a half ton of crack into the streets over the course of more than 6 years. Well, where did he get it from? Because he definitely wasn't the supplier. He was the buyer. So where was the crack cocaine coming from? That's the part the prosecutors never talked about during the course of his trial. Coles was not charged with any crimes of violence, but federal authorities said they believe his group and its members were tied to nearly 24 shootings and 7 homicides. Well, they didn't have any proof, and as he was growing his drug empire, Coles was also building his reputation in the local rap scene. He helped found the hip-hop label Take Down Records and stage popular parties and concerts around the city. He and a friend, Tim Gotti, Bowman, produced and starred in a 31-minute music video called New Jack City, The Next Generation, in which they portrayed Philadelphia drug dealers who used violence and intimidation to cement their standing in the underworld. Authorities used the video as part of a 2-year investigation into Coles and his gang and said takedown records amounted to a front for Coles to wash his money. They also wiretapped hundreds of conversations between drug associates and went on to seize dozens of weapons and hundreds of thousands of dollars in raids on members' homes. So Cole was charged in 2005, and were nearly 2 dozen associates. As were near 2 dozen associates, some of whom pleaded guilty or went on to cooperate or became snitches, rather. Forget the word cooperate. They became snitches with the district attorney's office. Cole took his case to trial and testified in his own defense, saying he was not the kingpin, prosecutors made him out to be. But in 2008, a jury found Cole guilty of crimes including conspiracy to distribute cocaine and heading a continuing criminal enterprise. U.S. District Judge R. Barkley Sukaric later sentenced Coles to life plus 25 years. The imposition of that penalty, however, was hardly the end of the legal drama connected to Coles. After Coles was sentenced, a Philadelphia police officer was convicted and imprisoned for tipping Coles off about his impending arrest. A federal appellate court also later overturned the conviction tied to Coles' girlfriend, who had been accused of helping him launder drug money to buy a house. And the only reason why they convicted the girlfriend and locked her up because she wouldn't snitch on her boyfriend. You know it, and I know it. So, in 2014, he successfully argued to have one of his two prison sentences, the 55-year term, reduced to 5 years because of technicalities. And how evidence was used to prove certain charges, his life sentence, however, remained intact. But in 2020, Henson Necker, Coles' appellate lawyer, filed a new motion challenging that penalty, saying a law passed by Congress in 2018 made Coles eligible to have his life sentence reduced. The law, known as the First Step Act, was a sweeping attempt to undo some of the tough on-crime laws from the 1990s that caused the federal prison population to swell. The bill received bipartisan support and was signed into law by the current president. So I'm going to leave that article right there, moving on to some other things that's happening. Mayor Zahan Mamdani in New York City, according to the New York Times. This is crazy, but it's true. Let me turn around and trying to get you to buy something. I just want to read the article. And we're not doing that. Nope. I'll pick it up from another source. Don't worry about it. All right. Here's the Democrats' DHS shutdown halts ICE oversight they demanded. Now let's see what this article is about here. Let's move on to some of the bigger news. All right, this is a real serious story, ladies and gentlemen. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, 8 people are dead in a Tahoe avalanche, making it one of the deadliest in decades. And this article was written for the San Francisco Chronicle by Adine Vaziri, who is a staff writer. 8 of the 9 people reported missing after a massive avalanche struck a guided back country ski drop near Lake Tahoe, were confirmed dead Wednesday. Nevada County authorities said, making the incident one of the deadliest U.S. avalanches in decades. One member of the ski group remained missing Wednesday afternoon and was presumed dead. Officials said 6 members of the group survived and were rescued after a major operation Tuesday afternoon and into the night. Identities of the deceased skiers were not released Wednesday, as their bodies remained in the slide area and next of kin had not been notified, officials say. Sheriff Shannon Moon said the Nevada County Dispatch Center received a 911 call reporting the avalanche at 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday in the Castle Peak area north of Interstate 80 near Donner Summit, a very remote, rugged area that is not a groomed area or a ski resort area, but backcountry terrain in Tahoe National Forest near the specific Crest Trail, she said. Moon said the 15-person group was on a guided 3-day trip run by Blackbird Mountain Guides of True Key. The party included 4 guides and 11 clients. One client backed out at the last minute, she said. The party spent 2 nights at the Frog Lake ski huts and was returning to the trailhead on its third day when the avalanche hit. 6 people survived and were located Tuesday evening after sheltering under a tarp during intense snowfall. Moon said 2 were injured and were taken out by snowcat. They were hospitalized but expected to survive. Extreme weather conditions, I would say, is an understatement, Moon said, describing gale force winds, heavy snow, and whiteout visibility. Rescue teams reached the area shortly after 5:30 p.m., but a snowcat, a specialized vehicle equipped with threads, was only able to get to about 2 miles short of the site due to the avalanche danger, and rescuers skied the rest of the way. California Office of Emergency Services Law Enforcement Chief Don O'Keefe said his personnel were communicating with one of the guides for over a 4-hour period by text, relaying information to Nevada County as rescuers mobilized. Moon said the survivors began searching for missing members of their group and located 3 bodies before rescuers arrived. Captain Rusty Green, the incident commander for the initial response, said the ski group was fairly close together when the slide happened. It was reported to us that they were attempting to go out as a group, that somehow the avalanche yelled avalanche and it overtook them rather quickly. One of the injured skiers was released from the hospital Tuesday night, and the other was expected to release Wednesday. Moon said one survivor was a Blackbird guide, and the other were 5 clients. Moon said that her office has been in contact with the guide company about its decision to proceed with the trip despite forecasts warning of high avalanche danger, and that Blackbird was cooperating with officials, providing its trip manifest and other information. The avalanche warning was issued Tuesday morning, while forecasts of the major blizzard had begun to take shape last week. The Black Country is beautiful. There's not a lot of people out there, and that's where a lot of people like to recreate, Moon said. I myself like to recreate in that area, but Mother Nature, it doesn't seem to matter. The Ciceri Avalanche Center confirmed a large scale on a north-facing slope near 82,000 feet and classified it as a D 2.5 slide, powerful enough to cause serious injury or death. Chris Fruteria, supervisor of the Tahoe National Forest, said the avalanche was about a football field in length and resulted when a persistent weak layer failed under a heavy load of snow. All right, let's find out some other things that are happening around the country here. ProPublica, in the criminal justice section, amid mass ICE arrests, Trump pardon recipient Juan Orlando Hernandez was given special treatment, according to this article. Well, let's find out what's going on here. For months, President Donald Trump has rallied against Latin American narco-terrorists flooding the United States with lethal poison. He has used the scourge of drug trafficking as a rationale for dozens of military strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific Ocean, which have left more than 140 people dead. Last month, Trump chaired a military assault by U.S. forces that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores and brought them to the U.S. to face charges related to cocaine trafficking. Maduro, Trump said, led a vicious cartel that flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for deaths of countless Americans. But when it comes to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was tried and convicted in the U.S. in 2024 and sentenced to 45 years in prison for taking bribes and allowing traffickers to export more than 400 tons of cocaine to the U.S., Trump has taken a decidedly softer tone. Hernandez, he said, has been treated very harshly and unfairly. so unfairly that on December 1, Trump pardoned the former president after he served less than 4 of those 45 years. But the federal government's magnanimity did not end there. On the day he was to be released, records show Hernandez had an immigration detainer, a request for law enforcement agencies to hold non-citizens for pickup by ICE. Here, too, the Trump administration's treatment of Hernandez differed from its public objectives. Other non-citizens caught up in recent immigration sweeps, the vast majority of whom who do not have criminal records, have faced swift efforts to deport them, even to countries where they may face threats. But in Hernandez's case, the FBI or the Federal Bureau of Prisons scrambled to get his detainer removed so he could walk free. And Hernandez did not just walk out of the prison despite persistent budget and staffing shortages. Prison officials paid a specialized technical team overtime to drive Hernandez from a high-security facility in West Virginia to the famed 5-star Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. According to records and 3 people familiar with the situation, before he left, Hernandez was allowed to use the captain's government phone to talk to the Federal Prison System's Deputy Director, Joshua Smith, who was convicted in a drug trafficking conspiracy before Trump pardoned him in 2021. Quote, the Prisons Bureau administration rolled out the red carpet for him, said Joe Rojas, a retired prison worker and former union leader who has been speaking to the media on behalf of staff who fear reprisals for doing so since Bureau leaders stopped recognizing the union last year. The staff are disgusted. Renato Stabillo, the court-appointed lawyer representing Hernandez, who has long maintained his innocence, said his client's treatment was appropriate. It would be particularly cruel to grant someone a pardon and have them released from prison only to have them immediately shipped back to a place like Honduras, where they would have immediately arrested him or he would have been killed on sight by criminal elements that wanted to do him harm. Stabillo told ProPublica through his attorney. Hernandez declined to comment. ICE referred all questions to the White House, which responded with a link to a November social media post announcing the president's intent to pardon Hernandez. Smith didn't respond to an emailed request for a comment. A BOP spokesperson said in the email statement that the Bureau does not discuss conditions of confinement or security procedures and that employee standards of conduct prohibit staff from giving any prisoners preferential treatment. Violators may be subject to disciplinary actions, including removal, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's all just talk. So do you think that this is preferential treatment? The investigation had ultimately ensnared Hernandez, stretched across several U.S. presidencies, despite looming legal trouble stateside and widespread allegations of corruption in his country. Hernandez, often known by his initials as JOH, was seen as a key U.S. ally under the Obama and first Trump administrations, ostensibly because of his apparent willingness to help tackle drug trafficking and migration issues. In 2012, as president of Honduras National Congress, he famously pushed through a legal change allowing for the extradition of accused criminals to the U.S., a reform that his attorney pointed out was ironically later used to extradite him. But in 2018, less than halfway through Hernandez's second term as president, the Drug Enforcement Administration arrested his younger brother, former Honduran Congressman Tony Hernandez, in Miami for a series of weapons and drug trafficking charges. A jury found him guilty the following year at a Manhattan federal trial in which Emal Bove, the federal prosecutor who would later become Trump's personal defense attorney, gave a closing argument replete with allegations implicating the Honduran president in criminal schemes. Bove could not be reached for comment. Although the sprawling criminal case focused on narco-trafficking concerns, Juan Orlando Hernandez's political career was fraught in other ways. Dana Franklin University of California, Santa Cruz history professor who studied Honduras described him as a repressive criminal on multiple fronts. While in Congress in 2012, he led a technical coup, in overthrowing the Supreme Court, she said. Then he ran for re-election to the presidency in 2017 in complete violation of the Constitution. Amid the resulting protests, security forces shot and killed at least 16 people, including 2 children, among other human rights abuses. A United Nations report found Hernandez has said little publicly, but his government told the UN it would look into those cases. His party has tweeted that it has an unwavering commitment to democracy and freedom. Oh my goodness. Even though I read this stuff, some of this stuff is hard to read. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And to me, this seems like this is a double standard. I got to laugh before I read this article. FCC Chair Brendan Carr says the media were lied to over Stephen Colbert's controversy. According to the article written by Jeremy Barr in Washington, the chair of the U.S.'s top media regulator claimed on Wednesday that journalists have been tricked into covering claims by the late-night host Stephen Colbert that he had been blocked by his network from interviewing a Texas Senate candidate. Brendan Carr, the avowed pro-Trump chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, mentioned his comments after Colbert accused the Trump administration and CBS of censorship. CBS has countered Colbert's claims in a statement, saying it had not blocked him from interviewing James Tallarico, a Texas Democrat, but it merely provided legal guidance that such an interview might trigger equal time regulations that would require him to also platform Tallarico's campaign rivals. Well, what the heck is that? If all this legal jargon and twisting of words that these people come up with, basically the letter was saying, do not conduct the interview. That's it. And Stephen Colbert is right. He was blocked from having the interview. I think yesterday was a perfect encapsulation of why the American people have more trust in gas station sushi than they do in the national news media. Of course, the media is always an enemy to these people. Always. Carr said, speaking at an FCC meeting in his first public comments on the controversy, I think you guys should feel a bit ashamed for having been lied to and then run with those lies. Well, we've been hearing a pack of lies over the past several years. It's ironic they can always condemn the press and the people who work in the press, but they're tight-lipped when it comes to saying anything about the current administration. They all like a bunch of cowards and they keep their mouths shut and they never say anything in an opposing point of view. In guidance issued in January, the FCC said that daytime and late night talk shows would not automatically be eligible for exemptions to the equal time rule, which was enacted as part of the Communications Act of 1934. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the nature of the beast. Well, remember the story with Jimmy Kimmel? Wasn't Jimmy Kimmel fired by ABC? And then he sued ABC. He got his legal team together and they rehired him because of censorship. That's what the entire case was about. And Jimmy Kimmel won the case. And almost 50 plus to 100 million people watched the first show when he came on that night. So some things just don't add up. Some things just don't make sense. All right, let's move on to the next article here. Have you noticed that all of these political leaders are basically speaking from the same playbook? Make this country great again. Make that country great again. Make this country this again. Make that. They're all speaking from the same playbook. book. Behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen, before I move on, behind the scenes is a lot of jockeying going on that you and I know nothing about. While most people are trying to make ends meet, they're trying to pay their bills with what little bit of funds they have. These people are at parties sitting up sometimes all night long, deciding how to make people's lives miserable, how to be divisive, how to create confusion, how to keep the races divided against each other for the benefit of them clinging on to power. And how many people keep falling for the okey doke? How is it that if somebody makes $2 more than you, or you make $3 more than them, how do they become your bitter enemy? This is the stupidity that's going on in polarization politics today. Ladies and gentlemen, we must take the time to read and research for ourselves. The very things that they don't want you to do. They don't want you to read. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to analyze. They don't want you to have your own mind with opposing point of views. They just want you to go along with the status quo. All right, for those of you that like buffalo wings, a judge allows Buffalo Wild Wings to keep boneless chicken on the menu. The judge's ruling said the plaintiff did not have enough meat on the bone for a strong argument against the fast food chain. So this article was written by Anaya Chitia for the Mirror. U.S. District Judge John Thorpe in Illinois said Buffalo Wild Wings can continue calling its dish boneless wings even though they are essentially chicken nuggets. Did you get that? The buffalo wings are not buffalo wings. They are chicken nuggets, but you can call them buffalo wings. It comes after Amin Haflim filed a lawsuit back in March 2023 against the company and said it violated the state Consumer Fraud Act for calling its item menu boneless wings instead of chicken nuggets. But Thorpe did not side with Halim. Boneless wings are not a niche product for which a consumer would need to do extensive research to figure out the truth. Thorpe wrote, instead, boneless wings is a common term that has existed over 2 decades. Halim did not drum up enough factual allegations to state a claim. Thorpe added, though he has standing to bring the claim because he plausibly alleged economic injury, he does not plausibly allege that reasonable consumers are fooled by Buffalo Wild Wings' use of the term boneless wings. Yes, they are fooled. They expect them to be boneless wings. That's why they're called boneless wings. And here you are selling chicken nuggets that you probably get from what? Any store, and sell them at high prices, and they think they're getting boneless wings. In actuality, is nothing but chicken nuggets. The judge also pointed out that vegetarian cauliflower wings are also sold under the wing section of the restaurant's menu. If Halim is right, reasonable consumers should think that cauliflower wings are made at least in part from wing meat, he wrote. They don't, though. The district judge will grant Halim to amend his complaint by March 20 if he can provide additional facts that his experience that would demonstrate that BWW, Buffalo Wild Wings, is committing a deceptive act. When Halim went to get food at Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Prospect, Illinois in January 2023 and ordered boneless wings, he said he was expecting wings that were deboned. In his lawsuit, he suggested the boneless wings should be called something more accurate like chicken poppers. Halim noted the boneless chicken wings were not wing meat, but breast meat, which is cheaper. What did I tell you? He also stated he suffered a financial injury from the restaurant's false and deceptive conduct. Meanwhile, Buffalo Wild Wings said it's indirectly clear that the buffalo wings cannot be made of actual wing meat. I bet you they don't have a disclaimer in the restaurant that says that. No, they don't. They're lawyers, and they're all being deceptive. Because that sign probably says Buffalo Wild Wings. There's no disclaimer that says these are not actually Buffalo Wild Wings. We just call them Buffalo Wild Wings, but in actuality, they're chicken nuggets, breast meat. They know exactly what they're doing. Forbes cited a 2024 Ohio Supreme Court ruling on what customers can expect when they place an order at restaurants. That's true. As the Ohio Supreme Court recently put it, a dinner reading boneless wings on the menu would no more believe that the restaurant was warranting the absence of bones in the items than believe that the items were made from chicken wings. Just as a person eating chicken fingers would know that he had not been served fingers, he wrote. But in 2023, Wild Wings responded to the lawsuit by posting on X, quote, "It's true, our boneless wings are all white meat chicken. Our hamburgers contain no ham. Our buffalo wings are 0% buffalo," the post read. That's all they had to say to begin with, but this lawsuit is not going to end any time soon. I'm just reading some of the comments. A good evening to you too. That's quote, "That's disgusting. It's a paste of various curd." I agree. I don't eat that kind of terrible food anymore. I know that's right because I'm changing my eating habits as well, you know. All right, check this out. Coming from CBS News, months before death by suicide, an aide texted a colleague she had an affair with her boss, Representative Tony Gonzalez. Now, what's this story about? Now, a whole lot of folk wrote this article. Finn Daniel Gomez, Aaron Ferraro, and Caroline Linton. Reginald Santos Avalis, an aide to Representative Tony Gonzalez, wrote a text message to a colleague that she had an affair with the Republican congressman. This is a cheating, lying, MAGA Republican. The one who are always talking about conservative values. The one who's always talking about family values. The one who are always condemning the LGBTQ plus community. This hypocrite was cheating on his wife and probably going to church on Sunday with a big Bible in his hand. So she had texted a friend that she was having an affair with the Republican congressman. Months later, Santos Avalis, 35, died after allegedly setting herself on fire. I don't bit more believe that. Do you believe that? I do not believe she set herself on fire. Quote, "I had an affair with our boss and I'm fine," Santos Avalis said in the text exchange, which was viewed by CBS News. The news was first reported by the San Antonio Express News. Santos Avalis died on September 14, 2025, after she was found critically burned the night before near her home in Uvalde. According to the Uvalde Police Department, the Bexar County Medical Examiner ruled the death a suicide in November, according to CBS San Antonio affiliate KENS. So just because they ruled it a suicide doesn't mean that it was a suicide. Coroners lie every day. They falsify records every day. In a statement on Wednesday, Gonzalez would not comment. I guess he wouldn't on the allegation, saying he would not engage in these personal smears and instead remain focused on helping President Trump secure the border and improve the lives of all Texans. Bull, dude, you got caught. That is a deflective tactic, because the lying, cheating, adultering congressman got caught, and now his aide is dead. What's going on here, really? And you want to smear her in death. You know, let me tell you something very plain. A lot of these people, they're going to have to answer before Almighty God on Judgment Day. All will be made known. You may be getting by in this life, but you won't get over before the great white throne judgment before the Almighty, because your sins will follow you into eternity. All the corruption, all the lies, all the deceit. For what? For power, money, sex, greed. When is enough enough? People are lying and cheating every single day. In a statement on Wednesday, Gonzalez, whatever, man, I don't believe nothing he said. In a November appearance on a panel, the 45-year-old congressman denied the affair, saying the rumors are completely untruthful. Gonzalez is a married father of 6. And Santos Alice was also married and had a son. What does that mean? Married people cheat every day. You know how many people use marriage as a pretext, cover up? But they got that boo or booette on the side, and they're doing their thing. Wealthy people do it, poor people do it. Preachers do it, politicians do it, entertainers do it, athletes do it. The rich do it, the poor do it. The famous do it, the non-famous do it. The educated do it, the uneducated do it. Cheating goes on every day in America and around the world. Gonzalez called Santos Aviles a kind soul who devoted her life to making the community a better place. Her efforts led to improvements in school safety, health care, and rural water like never before. He accused one of his primary opponents, Brian Don Herrera, of using a disgruntled former staffer to smear her memory and score political points. That's a lie. These people always making stories up without any substantiated proof whatsoever. They just say it and they expect people to believe it. Gonzalez also alleged that his ex-staffer, who reported to Texas, moved to Los Angeles to work for Democratic campaigns. I believe he campaigned too. You know, these Republicans think they're almighty God. They think they're angelic beings. They think they can say no wrong and do no wrong. That's why they keep gerrymandering and trying to change the rules before the election occurs. The ex-staffer denied to the Express News that he was paid by any of Gonzalez's primary opponents. And Gonzalez represents Uvalde in parts of San Antonio, and the Texas-Mexican border, is currently running for his 4th term. Vote him out of office. It's considered a safe Republican seat, and Gonzalez won the election with a 24-point margin, although the district boundaries have been changed since then. The primary was much closer. Herrera lost to Gonzalez by just 400 votes. He's challenging Gonzalez again this year, and on Tuesday called on Gonzalez to exit the race. Early voting started Tuesday in the March 3rd primary. You know he ain't dropping out that race. He's going to stay right in it. And this is why a lot of people get upset, because they don't dig into things. They just see something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take a quick break. I'll be right back right after this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tyrone Bowman Live. I'm talking about this article, how an aide to a Republican congressman, and they claim that she committed suicide, and she left a text message behind stating she was involved in an adulterous affair with her boss, Representative Tony Gonzalez. And now he's claiming that this is a smear tactic by the Democrats. Why is it that when a credible organization like CBS News, who's known for excellent reporting, talks about a story, they want to say that it's something that's made up from the Democrats in an attempt to smear Republicans? I keep telling y'all, major decisions have to be made in the upcoming midterm elections. Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't let them keep telling you that everything is fine when everything is not fine. This is what individuals have to know and understand. According to CBS News, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson will be remembered as a role model for a generation. According to the article written by Caroline Linton, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died Tuesday at age 84, is being remembered as a role model for a generation, in the words of Mark Morayo, the president of National Urban League, the civil rights organization that awarded Jackson a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. I'm quite sure I didn't pronounce his last name correctly. That was not intentional. I'm remembering him as a role model for a generation of us who ran for office in the 90s. Morrell told CBS Mornings his presidential campaigns of 84 and 88 were influential in how he conducted a campaign to really bring people who were locked out and left out, people who were not registered, but also because he was one of the first to really advance this vision of a multi-racial American democracy and made it essential to his campaign. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, the new generation, younger, thoughtful politicians are going to come into being. Do you know how many old people are serving in the Senate and Congress? Been there for almost 40 years and 50 years and don't want to leave. The average senator is 83 plus years old and still hanging on the power, don't want to retire. Look at Mitch McConnell. He can barely walk. He can't talk. He's doped up on medicine all the time. They bring him out only for public appearance's sake and for him to vote their interest. He's a prop. But sooner or later, he's going to be replaced. Senator Lindsey Graham is old. So many of these people, they're old fossils, even in the Democratic Party. It's time for the robust, younger, sharper generation who see things differently to take the helm. Of course, there will be differences with political ideology and things of that nature. Okay, that's the business of politics. But you need thought-provoking, hungry, not power-driven people who care about the sick and the hurting and the suffering and the marginalized. And I've said this before, and I got to say it again before I finish reading this article. Don't forget about what's going on in this nation. Don't be blinded. Don't be manipulated. Don't be cajoled. Don't be fooled. The economy is still out of control. Joblessness is still out of control. Gas prices, food prices, egg prices, still out of control. The farming industry, out of control. Medicaid, Medicare, insurance prices are going higher and higher. And what's happening in the world? They're constantly advertising on social media. Gamble, gamble, gamble. Gamble your life away. Lucky this, lucky that, blah, blah, blah. Lottery this, lottery that. All this stuff is rigged. It's rigged. These are the issues. that must be before people. Don't forget about what's going on with ICE in this country, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff is real. This is not a game. Murdering people, people losing their lives is not a game for political leverage. Too many people don't care. They don't give a damn, point blank, because it's not affecting them directly. When it comes to your city, your town, your neighborhood, your friends, your mother, your father, your associates, when they start coming up into your churches and your halls and your mosques and your masjids and your community centers and to your schools, then what? Oh, now it's a tragedy. Reverend Jesse Jackson stood for everything that was good and decent during his time here on earth. He took the bull by the horns and he ran with it after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because the old guard, they were scared to death. And he understood the importance of keeping the flame lit, arguing, debating, and fighting for those who could not fight and speak for themselves. What good is a ton of money and you're a coward deep down the inside of your heart? So you can say, well, I've got a lot of money. You're not going to take any of it with you. You can have a gold-plated, seal-proof, waterproof, non-rusting coffin all you want. It don't matter. They're going to throw dirt on top of it at the end of the day. America is in serious trouble. And this nation has got to come together at some point in time if it's going to survive. Jackson's family said he died peacefully with his son, Representative Jonathan Jackson, telling CBS Chicago that my family was around his bedside. Jonathan Jackson described the atmosphere as very intimate and personal, and family, friends coming by, an overwhelming amount of ministers who prayed for us, prayed with us. Some people see a political figure, and I just know him as a person that never gave up on me, Representative Jackson said. I would tell people, just as a son speaking of a father, never give up on your children. Fight for your children, ladies and gentlemen. Fight for your children. The same way the white wealthy people fight for their kids in the court of law every day, even though they know their child is guilty. They want them to have the best lawyers. They don't want them to go to prison. They don't want them to do any jail time. They want to try to find a way to pay people off and silence people. Well, the Super Bowl champions, the franchise is up for sale. Paul Allen's estate begins selling the Super Bowl champion Seahawks, according to ESPN. This was written by Renton Wash. The Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks are officially for sale. The Paul G. Allen estate, which has owned the Seahawks since Allen died in 2018, announced Wednesday that it has commenced a formal sale process for the team in accordance with the late owner's will. ESPN first reported last month that the Seahawks will be up for sale after Super Bowl, 51, 52, I don't know. Seattle beat New England 29-13 on February 8th to claim the franchise. This is a second Lombardi trophy. It's the first time in the Super Bowl era that a team has been put on the market shortly after playing in the championship game. The Allen estate has selected investment bank Allen and Company and law firm Latham and Watkins to lead the sale process, which is estimated to continue through the 2026 offseason. According to the announcement, NFL owners must then ratify a final purchase agreement. Jody Allen has controlled the Seahawks and the Portland Trail Blazers as the estate's chair in the wake of her brother's death. Paul Allen's will dictate it that both teams were eventually to be sold, with all estate proceeds going to philanthropy. Wow. He wants all his money to go to good, philanthropic, humanitarian purposes. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell referred to that directive when asked during Super Bowl week about a potential Seahawks sale. He denied a Wall Street Journal report that the organization was fined $5 million due to its ownership structure not being in compliance with league rules. That fine was being held in abeyance, a source told EPS's Seth Wickersham. And the Blazers are in the process of being sold. Bert Cottle, the vice chair of the Allen Estate, said during Super Bowl week that the sale is on track to be finalized in the spring. So there's a lot of jockeying stuff going on. I said there's a lot of things that's happening and going on. Over in Canada, according to ESPN, Canada's Sidney Crosby has suffered an injury at the Olympics. Wow. Coming out of Milan, Canada. Articles written by Emily Kaplan. Captain Sidney Crosby will undergo imaging to determine the severity of his lower body injury, sources told ESPN today. Crosby appeared to injure his right leg in the second period of Canada's come from behind 4-3 overtime victory against Czechia in the Olympic hockey quarterfinals. The 38-year-old tried to stay in the game, but he left later in the period and did not return. Wow, a lot is going on. I tried to bring news from a variety of sources. So he was officially ruled out during the third period with what Hockey Canada called a lower body injury, but he didn't come back to the game. Quote, you just rarely see. And so for him, something definitely went wrong. Coach John Cooper told reporters after the game, but he just thought he wasn't in a position to help the team for the rest of the night and will reevaluate after that. Crosby, who is also the Pittsburgh Penguins captain, was bracing for a big check from Czechia defenseman Radko Gudas when he got injured. Crosby labored after that, then got crunched into the boards by both Gudas and Martin Necas. Crosby returned to the bench where he was hunched over in pain. He limped off to the locker room as Canada trailed 2-1, the Canadians' first deficit of the entire tournament. Nick Suzuki scored the tying goal late in the third period to keep Canada alive. Mitch Marner went on to score the overtime winner for Canada, marking his first goal of the tournament, and one he later said was probably hard not to say the biggest goal of his life. Crosby couldn't come out for the third, but he did address the players, and I think that was a big thing coming in, Cooper said. If we lose this game, we didn't want to be Sid's last game at this Olympics, so it was a big motivator for the guys coming out. That's a lot to say for camaraderie for a team. Goddess, the captain of the Anaheim Ducks, told reporters that he hopes Crosby is okay and that he was just trying to hold the line. Well. It's not going on in the sports world. Okay, yeah, let's see. I'll talk about that another time. Let's see what else we got going on here before we conclude this broadcast for tonight. Wells Fargo just can't seem to get itself together. Wells Fargo has to pay 56 point to pay a $56.85 million settlement, according to USA Today. Articles written by Julia Gomez. Wells Fargo has agreed to pay $56.85 million settlement, a class action lawsuit. Wait a minute, let me read this right. Wells Fargo has agreed to pay $56.8 million to settle a class action lawsuit that claims some customers' credit scores were harmed during the COVID-19 pandemic. The bank did not admit wrongdoing, but agreed to settle after the lawsuit alleged it violated the Fair Credit Reporting Act by improperly reporting mortgage forbearances, which allows borrowers to pause or reduce payments during financial difficulty, according to legal news site Top Class Actions. Well, when you have to pay out that kind of money, whether you admit wrongdoing or not, you're wrong. You don't pay out that kind of money unless you got caught. Why is it that big corporate America can always get a bailout, a corporate government welfare check to stop them from going under, to stop them from crumbling, and everyday people, they can't even borrow something because they keep running their credit check, their credit scores, and all that kind of foolishness. Sometimes it's not even worth the trouble and heartache to fill out that application, ladies and gentlemen. Don't even waste your time. Do it the old-fashioned way. You work with people and find a way to get stuff done. Stop begging these bankers. Stop begging these people sitting behind these desks. They want you to crawl and beg. And if somebody rich and famous comes in there with a terrible credit rating, bankrupting every corporation they have, they'll extend them as much credit as they need and loan them as much money as they need. But an everyday person, consumer, they can't get anything done because they consider them to be a liability. Well, when you call yourself, quote unquote, bailing out major corporations, that's called corporate welfare. That's what it is, corporate welfare. Whether folk want to call it or not, it's a handout. Why don't they pull themselves up by their own corporate bootstraps? Why don't they stop getting in the corporate welfare line? Why don't they stop begging for corporate SNAP benefits? Why don't they stop begging for corporate SNAP handouts? Them punishing everyday people because they got laid off from their job, they got fired from their job, they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and then you get mad and you want them to fill out an application that has 1,000 pages to it just to get less than $200 a month. And then you add all these stupid stipulations attached to it. It's ridiculous. That's why you have to vote the Republicans out of office in November. You don't pay $56.8 million in the settlement and then claim, well, we didn't do anything wrong. Then what are you paying the money for? If you didn't do anything wrong, Mr. Chairman of Wells Fargo, y'all always get caught in corruption. Wells Fargo is always caught in corruption upon corruption upon corruption, and they're always settling something out of court because you're guilty. The lawsuit alleged that during the early months of the pandemic, Wells Fargo placed some borrowers into mortgage forbearance after they expressed financial hardship or potential hardships. However, the lawsuit charged that Wells Fargo violated the Coronavirus Act Relief and Economic Security Act by inaccurately reporting account information to credit bureaus, potentially harming customers' credit scores. A judge in San Diego, California, is scheduled to decide whether to approve the settlement on April 17. If approved, affected customers could receive payments from the settlement fund. More details about eligibility and potential compensation are available at caresactlitigation.com. Were you a part of this? Go to caresactlitigation.com. One more time, caresactlitigation.com. Don't be afraid to become a part of a class action suit, a lawsuit, Only people who own or have owned property in California with a Wells Fargo mortgage will be eligible to participate in the lawsuit, according to the settlement website. To be eligible, they must have received a CARES Act forbearance on or after March 27, 2020. According to the settlement's website, their accounts must have been current and reported as in forbearance or something similar by Wells Fargo to a customer reporting agency. File it anyway. Tie them up. And Congress enacted the CARES Act to provide financial support to individuals affected financially by the pandemic. Well, Wells Fargo has been stealing people's money for a long time. They have. They've been stealing people's money for a long, long time. All right, according to MoneyWise, in the middle of winter in Massachusetts, some condo owners have been left in the cold. Residents in Andover's Washington's Park condominiums heard about mandatory evacuation orders a few days after a storm toppled a large tree on nearby power lanes. Dave Ramsey warns nearly 50% of Americans are making one big Social Security mistake. Oh, my bad. I mean, that's a different article. Electricity only went out for a few hours for about 500 customers, but the outage fried the shared boiler and hot water systems at the condo complex, leaving dozens of residents without heat or hot water, reported WCVB newsletter 5. Although the management company, Briggs LLC, restored utilities in 9 of the 13 buildings, they say they won't get the parts to fix the others for a few weeks. Check this out. Let that happen in some of the upper echelon, $1 million plus neighborhoods. I'll bet you they have that stuff fixed so fast, it's not even funny. Yes, sue them. File a lawsuit. Do like the rich people do. Look, tie them up in court. File. Don't be scared. File the lawsuit. In the meanwhile, Briggs abruptly ordered an extended evacuation, forcing homeowners and renters to find and pay for temporary housing, all with no clear plan for reimbursement. Where are they supposed to go? And you don't want to reimburse them? Where are they supposed to go? They think people just got money just to cough up. Most people do not have an emergency fund. They're too busy trying to survive on what little they have from day to day to day. And then when advocates speak up for them, you want to get mad at the advocates. We don't care. Somebody has to speak up for the small man and the small woman who are mired in debt and poverty. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter what part of the country you come from. It doesn't matter what party affiliation you belong to. Poverty is poverty. Poverty is neither black nor white. It's neither Republican or Democrat. It's neither Latino, Mexican, Hispanic, or Jewish. Poverty is a curse. It's hunger. It's worry. It's stress. It's neglect. That's what poverty is. And in America, nobody should be homeless and living in the streets, eating out of garbage cans and trash cans, or living in cardboard boxes, sleeping in alleyways, walking up and down the street with a sign with a bag wrapped around them. Not in this country or other country in the world. When dictators and kings and queens are living in palaces and Ivory Coast mansions and things of that nature, nobody begrudges the rich, but everyday people have to be taken care of too. Because most people who got rich didn't do it honestly. And if they say they did, they're a liar. And most of your lawmakers, let me tell you what they are. They're lawyers. They're doctors. They're owners of pharmaceutical companies. They're former CEOs of major corporations in America who decided to run for political office. So this makes no sense. People are always outside trying to find a way to make it. Let me see if there's anything else to report real quick before I head out of here for tonight. All right, listen to this from Cal Matters. This is coming out of California. Listen to this. California Governor Gavin Newsom expanded free preschool. Now, private daycares can't afford to stay open. There were so many children at Frisha Moore's Elk Grove Preschool that families filled up the wait list. Now, one of their playgrounds and 2 classrooms sit empty because one key group of kids has stopped coming. Dozens of families in recent years have opted not to enroll their 4-year-olds in Moore Learning Preschool and Child Care Center. She said instead, they're putting their children in transitional kindergarten, California's new public pre-kindergarten grade. Even though she provides a full day of preschool compared with transitional kindergarten that lasts only about 3.5 hours, Moore can't compete. Public school is free. She hasn't broken even in months and thinks about closing the preschool every single day. That would remove 91 licensed child care spots from the country, including 20 for children under age 2, for whom child care options are particularly scarce. Transitional kindergarten's expansion is one of Governor Gavin Newsom's signature educational achievements and a key part of his legacy on how California cares for its youngest residents. Early childhood advocates were delighted when he was sworn into office 7 years ago, his arms around his scene-stealing 2-year-old son. The first governor in decades to hold the office while raising young children, he had promised to achieve universal preschool, publicly funded preschool for all families who want to enroll, and expand access to child care for working parents. As he prepares to leave office, he is sure to tout those accomplishments during his State of the State address to lawmakers in January. He boasted of the most significant expansion of child care in America. It should be better known, he told MS. Now, last month, it's not. Many advocates say his legacy on child care includes some unfilled promises, though the expansions have been substantial. Newsom has nearly tripled funding for subsidized child care and early childhood programs, including state-subsidized preschools and transitional kindergarten for more than $5 billion in 2020 to more than $14 billion this year. Now, heads up, California, y'all better listen to me. Governor Newsom is leaving office soon, and the Republicans want the state. You better not let a Republican get the governor's seat, because if he does, the first thing he's going to cut is this right here. He's going to take it away from y'all. Every good thing that makes California work, a Republican governor will destroy it, dismantle it, create chaos, confusion, divisiveness, racial hatred, just to stay in power. And I'm not going to make somebody cause me to hate them because of the color of their skin. It ain't going down like that. So Governor Newsom's administration has funded 130,000 new subsidized child care spaces for low-income families. That means black people. And allowed private in-home child care providers that receive the subsidies to unionize, which has led to health care and retirement funds for a low-wage, overwhelmingly female workforce. No move has been more significant than the expansion of a free public pre-kindergarten grade for all families, regardless of income. The grade was available for a limited number of children for about a decade before Newsom's administration began expanding it to all 4-year-olds years ago. This school year, it was open for the first time to all children who turned 4 by September. Kudos to Governor Gavin Newsom. All right, as I said in the beginning of my broadcast, I want to talk about, and this is going to be the last article, I want to talk about Ash Wednesday. All right. According to Reuters news agency, Pope Leo laments a world in flames at the Ash Wednesday service. Pope Leo lamented a world in flames due to wars and the destruction of the environment during an Ash Wednesday Mass opening the season of Lent for the world's Christians. Before sprinkling ashes on the heads of participants, a sign of mortality, the Pope said the ashes could represent the weight of a world that is a blaze of entire cities destroyed by war. He also told participants that ashes could signify the ashes of international law and justice among peoples and the ashes of entire ecosystems. It is so easy to feel powerless in the face of a world that is in flames, said Pope Leo, the first U.S. Pope. Lent is a 40-day period of penance that leads to Easter, the most important Christian holiday, which celebrates the day on which believers say Jesus rose from the dead. It represents the 40 days Jesus is said in the Bible to have spent fasting in the desert. During the season, Catholics are asked to fast, remember the needy, and reflect on mortality. Leo, who is the elected leader of the 1.4 billion member church in May to replace the late Pope Francis, did not mention a specific conflict in his remarks. The Pope has forcefully decried the world's ongoing wars in his first year and denounced what he called a global zeal for war. All right, somebody asked the question, do Christians eat meat on Ash Wednesday? So, well, let's explore it according to USA Today. Do Christians eat meat on Ash Wednesday? The answer is yes and no, depending on their denomination. Many Catholics do not eat meat on Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, or any Friday during Lent. The rule is not steadfast across Christianity. Presbyterians, Lutherans, and other Christian denominations that observe Lent may not have the same dietary restrictions. Lent is not exclusively observed by Catholics, but is also practiced by Orthodox Christians and Protestants, including Anglican, Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, and some evangelical churches. However, the practice of refraining from eating meat is primarily observed among Catholics who opt to eat fish instead of poultry, pork, and red meat. Here's what to know about eating meat and fasting on Ash Wednesday, which falls today. And during Lent, which begins February 18th and ends April 12th, many Catholics abstain from eating meats on Ash Wednesday and every Friday during Lent. Okay, William Johnson, an associate professor of religious studies at the University of Dayton, previously told USA Today that abstaining from eating meat is also a form of penance, admitting to any wrongdoing and sins while turning back to belief in God. So what can Catholics eat while abstaining during Lent? On days when people abstain from eating meat, the most popular choice is fish, according to previous USA Today reporting. The Archdiocese says fish, shrimp, crab, lobster, and other shellfish can also be eaten. Those who don't have a taste for seafood can opt out for non-flesh animal products like milk, eggs, cheese, and butter. Some Catholics fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, according to USA Today's previous reporting, but Roman Catholic guidelines for fasting differ from those in other faiths. They require believers to abstain from food or drink for extended periods of time. Quote, in the church's directions for fasting, she says, one regular-sized meal and two smaller meals that don't equal that regular-sized meal, Father Dustin Doubt, executive director of the Secretariat of Divine Worship of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, previously told USA Today. There is no specific portion size set in the rule. Doubt says it is relative depending on the person and their life stage. So what exactly is Ash Wednesday? Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent, a period for repentance and prayer, according to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. It is also a time when people are asked to perform acts of charity. On this day, many Christians mark their Lenten journey by receiving ashes from the palms distributed during the previous year's Palm Sunday of celebration, the first day of the Holy Week, which commemorates Jesus' entry into Jerusalem. Many Catholics will attend a Mass where the priest will smudge ashes on their foreheads in the shape of a cross. The season of prayer lasts 40 days, excluding Sundays, and ends on Holy Thursday, April 2nd. It is when Christians prepare to celebrate the Lord's resurrection at Easter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming on. Thanks for checking out Tyrone Bowman Live Global News on today. So we're about to get out of here and handle some other things. Hopefully I'll be back on tomorrow. For those of you who have subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing. And as always, never surrender, never quit.